Hello Pisces, and welcome to your monthly horoscope for October for the Sun or the Ascendant. I'm going to give you a brief summary of the key strands of your situation, and then, if you'd kindly stay with me, dive deep to give you a deeper analysis of what lies ahead. Now, one of the things I would like to do is look at your co-rulers. You have two planets that govern your sign. The first is Jupiter, very much to do with spirituality, faith, expansion, travel, and that has been in retrograde for 3.5 months as we start this month, but by the 18th that comes to a close. Now, your other co-regent of Neptune does continue to retrograde through to the end of November, so that is still retracing its steps. But Jupiter is in the part of your horoscope to do with spirituality. It's very much in keeping its current location with the kind of mood music of your sign. But more challengingly, Saturn has also been retracing its steps in this part of your situation. And Saturn in the 12th house is not something one would take lightly. But great news here too. On the 11th, Saturn also ends its retrograde. So I think that's something to really appreciate. Now, Mercury is also retrograde as we start this month in your sector of shared finances, business, pensions, investments, entrepreneurship. That's an area that is going to be very much in focus, but I'll tell you more about that shortly. But also there's wonderful news coming later this month, because the Sun moves into your sister water sign on the 23rd in Scorpio and is joined by Mars on the 30th. And between the end of this month and the second week of December, I can almost guarantee you will be travelling. Even if there's COVID restrictions, you're going to find some way or another to do something more adventurous across those time periods. But if you're new to me or new to my channel, I'd be honoured if you would subscribe. Please click or tap on the bell notification symbol. Also, you can get your free daily written horoscope from me by subscribing on the link beneath this video. I've been writing daily horoscopes for about 27 years, and I write for lots of different platforms around the world. In the UK, my work is used by the Press Association and also Britain's most read newspaper, the Metro. So why not get your slice of the daily action with me totally free? Also, with year 2022 racing towards us, if you'd like to understand what the year will hold for you as an individual beyond your zodiac sign, you can order your forecast now and get the rest of this year free, plus a character analysis and 30% off. Now, this is based on your time, date and place of birth, and no two reports are the same. It will give you searing insights and also help you to see where there's the opportunities, but also steer clear of the challenges. Please see the link below. Now for that detailed analysis. So as we begin this month, a nice thing to tell you about is that Venus continues for the first week in the sign of Scorpio. So that's your area of truth around relationships. But it could mean that you're connecting with someone who's very different to you and proving to be quite fascinating and appealing. But the Sun, which is obviously the critical part of all our existences, that's in the 8th house. Now, the 8th house in a practical sense is about longer term finance. It's about shared resources. It can be about things like legacies and wills, but the 8th house in a more spiritual context is about transformations. It's a very scorpionic energy, and ironically the Sun is combining with the traditional ruler of Scorpio, Mars, through to the 17th. So your 8th house is really lit up in a very passionate way. So Mars is about desire, and it's also about instant gratification. So if you are someone who is really looking to meet someone, or at least enjoy some, steamy clinches, having the Sun next to Mars for the first 17 days really gives you an enormous opportunity to enjoy precisely that. However, Mercury, of course, is retrograde in this area too. So if you're negotiating anything that's important around finances, do treble check all the paperwork. And as always, Mercury influences not just contracts, the distribution of goods, travel, documentation, letters, emails, technology, and all those things can go on the blink or prove to be a little bit unreliable or create unexpected challenges. But equally, we need to look at Mercury retrograde as an opportunity. So the 8th house for you is have a think about how you're dealing with intimacy. How is intimacy going in your life? If you're someone who's living on your own and you're saying to yourself, I don't want to meet somebody, you're creating that reality. But is it the real feeling you have, or is it a more protective stance that you're manifesting in order to in some way keep yourself secure? Totally understandable, we've all done it. So Mercury retrograde is a chance to think about how deeply connected, invested, or even devoted you are. So just bear that in mind. But by the 6th, Pluto does go direct, but it doesn't change the fact that in the first 5 days of this month, Mercury in that 8th house is squaring up with Pluto. If there is some kind of politics in a group situation, or your future doesn't seem quite as clear as you would like because there are some psychological issues that are inhibiting you in some way, that might be part of this month's story that you have an opportunity to grapple with. And by the 6th also we have the new moon in the sign of Libra. Libra is about balance, equilibrium. It's a cardinal planet, leader, action, but it's also works through the prism of air in terms of the elements, communication. So the deep stuff that the 8th house is for you can be ventilated through talking and thinking, the air, if you give yourself, again, the permission. But this new moon is alongside Mars, and Mars and the moon being side by side with one another can be a little bit, well, dynamic would be a polite way of putting it. It certainly could see some very compulsive stuff going on over the next month. You know, you could find yourself really drawn towards somebody in a massive way, but equally really repulsed. You know, with the 8th house, it's very extreme polarities within that sign. But one of the things that makes this new moon equally unusual beyond the Mars position is the role of Uranus. So Uranus continues, is in its retrograde through to January now, but it continues in your sector of everyday communication and also your core values and thinking. But it's forging a quincunx or 150-degree angle to the new moon. So the 3rd house is quick energy. It's very Gemini-like, whereas the 8th house is very Scorpionic, very analytical at a deep level, quite mysterious. So if you try to make some quick decisions through Uranus about longer term things that are very important, financial, emotional, sexual, romantic, it probably won't be a very helpful thing to you. So it will be important not to rush the transitions that this new moon can flag up. However, on the 7th, Venus climbs higher into the sky for you, into the sign of Sagittarius. And it gives you an opportunity, you know, to use your ability with people. You know, you're often so very sacrificing. You know, people, Pisces people can be very cool. If you put out, you can be extremely cool, like the opposite of the compassion that you can give to the max. But you know, I think Venus being right at the top of the scope suggests that some goodwill could develop with a boss, or, you know, even someone you like. It may be someone who's older or younger, or there's something about them that's very stable that you could be drawn towards. But with Saturn going forwards on the 11th, releasing some of the psychological pressure, there's probably been a sense that, you know, maybe things are going on in the background of your situation that you can't control. You know, people talking tittle tattle, stuff like that. That's been a feature of Saturn square with Uranus for you for the whole of this year. Or your own anxieties have been stressing you out a little bit, or your own insecurities. Saturn going forwards will ease that, but then Saturn forges a very stable link with that very prominent position of Venus. So, you know, your ability to be discreet and help people in a profoundly kind way, and often with not wanting anything back, it could achieve some recognition. You know, it may be an email from a boss, it may be however, I know this doesn't come easily and it doesn't happen frequently, but you could get a rise at work. Or it could be that someone you help, a particular person, a client, really recognises how wonderful you've been with a bunch of flowers or a gift of chocolates, whatever. But something very celebratory about the sacrifices you have made can put you in the public eye in a positive way from the 10th to the 16th. So enjoy that well-deserved acclaim. The 18th sees Mercury end its retrograde, but it doesn't come out of shadow until the 3rd of November. The retrograde ending is more important. The shadow is much more subtle. It just means that if you are dealing with something that's to do with raising funds, working on a new business project that is more entrepreneurial, there may be a little bit of time before things need to play out before you find the exact position of where things stand. But the fact that Jupiter also ends its retrograde on the same day, I think is really, really good, because the 8th house of Mercury, psychological, the 12th house of Jupiter, psychological, the 12th house of Saturn, psychological, and they're all released. So I think you can feel a bit lighter from the middle of this month. There is a full moon, it's true, on the 20th in Aries, your second house of everyday resources, and it is squaring with Pluto in your 11th house of friendships. Whether it's around a love affair, a lover, or a friendship or a group of people, if there's something around where your values don't quite mesh with theirs, or someone's taken your generosity or money or possessions for granted, that could be a bit of an issue in the following couple of weeks. But then the Sun transitions into Scorpio, as I told you before, on the 23rd. And this is brilliant because I do feel that it's going to give you the desire to get away, but I don't think it will happen this month, because the Sun's then challenged by Saturn from the 27th to the 31st. Well, I'm not saying you can't go away, but I think maybe it'd be difficult to free yourself from some ongoing saga, demand, contract involvement or commitment, and you could get away from it, but it may leave you feeling a bit guilty. But I think by the end of the month, as Mars bursts into your 9th house, that really sets up the platform for you to do some escapism between then, the end of this month, and the middle of December. But I must tell you, from the 17th through to the 26th, the two rulers of Mars, two rulers of Scorpio, traditional Mars, modern Pluto, they are in conflict. If there is something, you know, like with a business partner, if you wanted something different from the future as them, or even a romantic partner, if this is a really serious disagreement, you know, you really are beginning to realise that you're not aligned, then that can be quite a combustible mix. On the other hand, it can give you enormous determination to get what you want. But for all of us, the clashes between Mercury from 0 to day 5, Sun week 3, Mars 17th to the 26th, all those three clashing with Pluto is not a permission to take shortcuts or to be unfair in our approach to our interactions with others. It just gives us more passion, purpose, and perhaps a will to defend our position, but you know, maybe to push back on someone who's not being particularly fair or just. But it doesn't give us permission to take liberties, or you know, to be so driven to achieve our desires that actually ends up being quite an empty win. So try to keep that goodwill going with people. It's a classic example from the 23rd to the 29th when Venus is squaring with Neptune, your other ruler. And Venus in the sign of Sagittarius for you, the 10th house, Neptune in your sign. If you're really idealistic about work, you may have a crushing piece of reality smashes into your situation with the square between the Sun and Saturn. So you do have that in your locker. You know, you can run all the way from being so sort of like optimistic, helpful, idealistic, to really going all the other end of the polarity of being very suspicious, cold, withdrawn, even a bit mean when you're really annoyed. Most Pisces people are at the good end. You know, we all have a potential to go to the bottom or the top of our potential, and most Pisces people I encounter are absolutely amazing people. But of course it is at times, you know, my draconic ascendant is in Pisces, and when I found that out I really realised how true it was. Just like I found out my draconic sun was in Gemini, chat, but the midpoint of my sun and the moon in my draconic is 0 degrees Cancer, very caring person. So I understand, because of the wateriness of my own nature, the compassion that gets invested, and then when it's not appreciated, how hurtful that can be. So you do have an opportunity to really make progress around finance, intimacy, investment of where you feel passionate. But I think with that Pluto energy there, it's kind of saying to you, it has to feel right for your higher values, for your future direction of travel. And I think you are evolving, like we all can evolve if we choose. But I think Pluto is particularly evolutionary in the 11th house. So friendships have changed, your long-term planning has altered. There's quite a lot going on, but all that 8th house energy is very intense, and therefore changes that are going on you can feel them very vividly. It can lead to some very some moments of the dark night, but also some releasing of old attitudes that free you up as you come into the end of this month with that 9th house energy to be more adventurous, playful, carefree, spontaneous. So you could go through a massive transformation this month, and the stars, or at least the planets I should say, are really giving you every support to do so. It's been a real pleasure being with you. Thank you so much. Stay safe and goodbye.